message today will be on John 1, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1 to 18, so I'll read that next. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and through the world was made through him. The world did not recognize him, though. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testified concerning him. He cried out, saying, "This is the one I spoke about when I said, 'He who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me.' Out of his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God but the one and only Son, who is himself God and is in closest relationship with the Father, has made him known." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
I'll just get into it, I guess. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, from John 1 to 18, first Sunday after Christmas. How was your Christmas? It is a question I have asked and been asked over the last few days. While I understand what has been asked, I also hear an underlying assumption that Christmas is over. It is the same assumption that underlies the birthday wishes to Jesus. "Happy birthday, Jesus," suggests that Christmas is the celebration of a past event, an anniversary. It is the reason why in at least a few homes the tree has already been taken down, the decorations packed away for another year, and the leftovers thrown out. I raise these 3 points not as a criticism or judgment, but diagnostically in recognition that we are event-driven people. We tend to live our lives from one event to the next. If you don't think so, take a look at your calendar. It is a schedule of events. Our days are full of events, and if there is a day or two with no scheduled events, then we say things like, "Nothing is going on that day," or "I am not doing anything that day," as if there is no life, nothing to learn or discover, nothing to experience on those days. How different is John's understanding of Christmas, life and humanity. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. This for John is a Christmas story, and it is set in the context of creation, in the beginning. Creation is not an event of the past, but the ongoing life of God with his people. John echoes and continues the Genesis story of creation. In the beginning, God said, "Let there be," and there was. Land, sky, vegetation, living creatures from the water, birds of the air, living creatures from the earth, and humankind made in the image and likeness of God. Christmas is God continuing to give life to his people, and the Word became flesh and lived among us. Christmas, says St. Gregory of Nyssa, is a festival of recreation. It is God giving God's own life to his people. It is as if God said, I want humanity to see my face. I want them to hear my voice. I want them to touch me. I want them to smell my sweat. I want them to eat my body. I want to live their life. I want them to live my life. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. This is God in the flesh, the divine, human, holy humanity. This festival of recreation is God's celebration of humanity. It is God entrusting God's self to human beings, to you and to me. It is God's reaffirmation of humanity's goodness. It is the sharing and exchanging of life between God and you and me. That's why the early church could say that God became human, so that humanity might become God. The Son of God became the Son of Man, so that the sons of men might become sons of God. Divinity was clothed in humanity, so that humanity might be clothed in divinity. How beautiful is that? Imagine what that means for us. It means we are holy and intended to be holy, not as an achievement on our own, but as a gift of God. This is a gift of Christmas. We have been given the power to become children of God. This happens not by blood or the will of the flesh or the will of the people. This happens not by the blood or the will of the flesh or the will of people, but by God, and the Word became flesh and lived among us. God sees humanity as the opportunity and the means to reveal himself. Yet far too often we use our humanity as an excuse. I'm only human, we declare, as if we are somewhat deficient. We fail to see, to believe, to understand that in the Word becoming flesh and living among us, we are God's first sacrament. Human beings are the tangible, outward and visible signs and carriers of God's inward and spiritual presence. Have you ever thought of yourself as a sacrament? Have you ever looked at someone across the street and said, hey, look, there is a sacramental image of God? Why not? Why do we not see that in ourselves and in each other? After all, the Word became flesh and lived among us. In the Jewish tradition, that rabbis tell a story that each person has a procession of angels going before them and crying out, make way for the image of God. Imagine how different our lives and world would be if we lived with this as our reality and the truth that guided our lives. Everywhere we go, the angels go with us, announcing the coming of the image of God and reminding us of who we are. That is the truth of Christmas for us. It is also the Christmas truth for the person living next door, for those we love, for those we fear, for those who are like us and those who are different, for the stranger and for our enemies. The Word became flesh and lived among us. The implications are profound. It changes how we see ourselves and one another, the way we live, our actions and our words. It means that Christmas cannot be limited to an event. Christmas is a life to be lived, a way of being. It means that Christmas is more properly understood as a verb rather than a noun. So maybe we should stop asking, how was your Christmas? Instead, we should be asking, how are you Christmasing? Are you recognising the Word becoming flesh in your own life? Are you recognising the Word becoming the flesh in the lives of others? Do you see the procession of angels and hear their voices? And the Word became flesh and lived among us. The Word became flesh and has never ceased living among us. The Word became flesh and will never cease living among us. So make way wherever you go, whatever you are doing, whoever you are with, make way for the image of God. Christmas, your way through life. That's the message for today.